Google Search Console index coverage errors. How to fix server error 5xx. In this video session, I'm going to bring out the big guns and show you few different methods that will help you to fix server errors. In fact, some of the methods that I will show you, I believe you won't be able to find elsewhere. So first thing to do is consider this. Your website is made up of various sections and parts. Popular content management systems like Wordpress has plugins for SEO or XML sitemap, all this stuff, right? And even the plugin developers tell you to submit sitemap, as in the parent sitemap. That means you shouldn't do that. Now, although this is related to fixing coverage issues, sitemaps still play a role here that you need to consider, because the server errors, you may see it for parts of your content management system that is rather irrelevant to analyze in Search Console. That means if you've submitted a parent sitemap, which then has many child sitemaps underneath it, don't do that. Instead, for WooCommerce or for WordPress, it's post sitemap XML. If you're using Yoast plugin, that's what you submit. The page sitemap, and if you're running WooCommerce, product sitemap. Submit them individually. Now, let's move on, because we need to then say, okay, you've done that as an example. As we can see, index coverage report, we have a tab here. It says all known pages. Next step, press on all submitted pages, because when you submit the sitemap correctly, then you will see index coverage errors, but it could be for different pages now. These pages become the most important for you to tackle first. So let's press on server error 5xx tab. Here Search Console is saying to me, you know what, you have submitted sitemap, and within those sitemaps we have identified 19 pages that are affected in terms of having server errors. And here it gives us examples. Let's press on one. We can press on the arrow icon to visit the URL right now, because when Google requests a URL, the way that it crawls it is much different than what you and I see. That means a web page, when it loads, as we can see, it's got text, images, colors, all this, but Google doesn't see it like that. Google sees the source code and it analyzes the entire HTML document, everything within it. So that means the last crawled information here is important for us to keep an eye on, because it may be the case that Google has visited your website, perhaps when your server was being uploaded, as in rebooted, and then Google requested the page, thus encountered an error. But if we're seeing the page all working correctly, that's a good sign for us to fix server errors, okay? Next, Google says, okay, you know what? We have some tools for you to fix these problems. We have Inspect URL tool. Let's press on that. It's gonna take a bit of time, but this is what Google shows. URL inspection tool tells us, okay, you know what? Google couldn't index that page because it just couldn't understand it, because the server gave response saying server error 5xx. Usually it's 500 internal server errors. Then it tells us, okay, you know what? This is the sitemap of your site. As we can see, the parent sitemap has been picked up. The reason for my case is because I've created an absolutely free WooCommerce course, and for me to be able to do that, I had to update the WordPress to include WooCommerce. Make sense? That's why it has picked that up. But that's no problem at all, because we are confident in knowing that parent sitemap is not the sitemap that we're using, as we can see. If we can easily delete the sitemap by pressing on the little dots on the right hand side and remove the sitemap. That means if you have submitted a parent sitemap and then you do have child sitemap, then only submit the child ones, okay? That's very important. You need to take my word on it. Because these errors are absolutely critical. Because that's what Google is saying. You know what? If we can't index the URL, then it's not in Google's index. That means when people search Google is not going to show. In this example, it was this URL, which is very important. URL on rankia.com website. It's part of the new services consultation, right? So I want people to find this in Google, right? Well, here it's saying on the September 4th, we just couldn't see the page because all we saw was a server error. Now, it then gives us further information as to page fetch. It couldn't fetch it. It couldn't see the page. Is the crawl allowed? Yes. That means Google was able to crawl. What that means is robots.txt file didn't have any directive saying don't go and visit that URL. So all is okay here. That's what crawl allowed means. Then indexing, well, it's not applicable because Google couldn't see it. Now, at this moment, press on test live URL. Let's do that. It takes a bit of time, and I went ahead and done that already. As you can see, right now, Google can see that page doing the live test, whereby this page here, it was on the September the 4th in this example. So therefore, at this moment, you need to run live test to see if Google can see it. Now, by now, I have shared with you insights in terms of index coverage report and how Google looks at certain things. But how do you fix it? What are some of the methods that you can use to fix the server errors? Now, as I've said to you, the smartest thing that you can do first is make sure you triple check your sitemaps. And then in the coverage report, although analyze everything here, you can press on page sitemap to see how many pages. In WordPress example, blog posts, how many blog posts were impacted by this error. All submitted pages is absolutely critical, right? So now let's go and see what happens. Now, I know that in my example, I've fixed these up, but you know what? Because I manage many different Search Console properties, I know how to fix all of them. And this is how you do it. Now, because it's to do with your website right now, it's to do with the workings of your content management system. For example, WordPress includes folder, and one of my valued clients was experiencing server errors due to this folder, as in files within it. So now let me go and visit a sample URL that my valued client experienced problems with. And I'm going to repeat the problem so that you see and show you how to get around it. let's imagine this here. Look what happened. First of all, it doesn't matter what content management systems that you're using, you should not allow directory browsing, because if you do, then Search Console will definitely pick those URLs, because Google is highly efficient in crawling links and web pages. So then, first thing, the method that you can use is, if your website is built on Apache web server, .htaccess file, which can be located in your web server, usually under public_HTML, it's a dot file which is hidden. If you cannot see it, press on Settings and then select Show Hidden Files, dot files, because then you can see .htaccess file. You would then download a backup before you touch it as a modifier and insert this directive. I'll zoom in so that you see. Yeah. If you're using WordPress, then popular plugins like Yoast gives you options to modify .htaccess file. Although not recommended, keep in mind you have that option to quickly and easily edit this file here. That means simply make some room if you're using Yoast and place that in. If you're not using Yoast, simply log into your web server account, download .htaccess file, then right click Edit, and then place this here for Apache servers. Because what this says to the way the URL is displayed is when someone visits a particular URL, they are not allowed to see it. Right now they are. But when I include this and upload this to my web server and refresh the page, it will just go to page not found, which is what you want. In this example, particularly for popular content management systems like WordPress. Then what you can do is you can further analyze few things, but we won't touch that for time being. So now that's .htaccess file. Also, if you're using WordPress, it could be that your server resources are not efficient enough to handle certain requests, thus causing problems as in server errors and so on. If you're using WordPress, open up wp-config.php, which can be found on your web server once again. For WordPress, you can place these two to increase memory limit, but doing this could perhaps be a way for you to test things. But I'm going to show you something that you won't find elsewhere, especially for WordPress. But even if you're using different content management system, you can use this method. Now, all right, let's imagine this scenario. Let me log into my web server using FileZilla program. And in here, let's go and see the WordPress includes an admin folder, right? Usually, Search Console will pick up wp-includes folder and what's within it. So what you can do is okay, there's two different samples I've created. You can create a file and name it .htaccess and put this header set xrobots tag no index, and then upload that .htaccess file within a folder. In this example, it's wp-includes for WordPress. But if you're using different content management systems and Search Console is showing you URLs coming from some folder structure that you think, you know what, Google shouldn't even request that URL. and it's showing server errors for those URLs, then following this method should definitely help fix that problem. Because then you're saying, you know what, Google, when you request the internals of my content management system, the first file it's going to look at is .htaccess file. And then if it sees this directive, it's going to say, okay, you know what, there is nothing important for me to index in that folder. And voila, with just one line of code and a file, you have avoided most persistent server errors for WordPress particularly. But if you're not using WordPress, you can still use this method. If Search Console is complaining about some internal files or PHP files that's making your content management system work. Also, let me share with you this as well. Before I do that, let me explain what this is. This .htaccess file example, it's basically the same as this, but you are now specifically saying, you know what, when the files match certain file type extensions, then send out header X, header set the header saying done, index, no index Google or other search engines. Now, if you're using WordPress, then I'll zoom in so that you see. You can place this within your functions.php code and then disable the heartbeat. I have commented things out because heartbeat may influence the way WordPress works. Okay, so I'll zoom in so that you see. Simply add this in functions.php file if you're using WordPress. Now, what else can you do, and what else you should do? You should, once again, inspect the URL. We've done that. But if the live test showed an error, and then you're thinking to yourself, all right, I'm visiting the URL and I'm seeing everything okay. But Google doesn't see things like that. What you can do is okay, where are we? Using Chrome browser or popular browsers give you web developer toolbar. You can press on F12, select network tab and refresh the page. Now, within this page, we can see that's the URL that's been requested, right? And you need to look at the status code 200 OK. So in this example, it's OK, but if you saw 500, let's take a look at this example. That's page not found. Okay, let me explain it like this, because this is very tricky in this moment. Yeah, as I've said, the way Google looks at a web page is different, right? That means when Google follows links within this, it may pick up certain URLs that it cannot access. And analyzing the network tab using F12, Web Developer Toolbar option in Chrome, you can analyze all the things that's been loaded on your URLs that Google was having server errors with. And then anything that you see that's in red color, that can perhaps guide you to say, when this page loads, here's what's being loaded. And if there is things that is in red color, then that's an error. So that may indirectly be causing server errors as well. Okay, so let's grab this URL because we can run a couple more tests. Let's go and inspect the URL. Retrieving data from Google Index. Okay, let's see a page that Google has indexed so that we see. what Google shows there. Because it will be the case that the URL Google is complaining about is within Google's index. As we can see, we can view the crawled page. Here, if you have access to this option when you inspect the URL that is having server error, 500 server error, then you can look at the HTML, you can look at the screenshot to see, what did Google see? Okay, that's live, test live URL, let's do that. Or we can press on more info. Let's press on the request. Here it should be 200. And then you can then further analyze what's being shown here to Google, okay? Screenshot, definitely test live URL will show us that information. And the screenshot, we can see it gives us further information. Here, this is what Google saw, even in live test. And it's saying mobile usability. The page is not mobile friendly. So now we need to then say, okay, what is the issues? Clickable elements too close together? Now, these are to do with mobile usability issues, not coverage issues, okay? So let me quickly wrap it up. To avoid future unnecessary server errors shown in Search Console, make sure you submit the specific sitemaps if you have that option for your setup. Then, when you analyze coverage error, always look at all submitted pages and triple check them using the methods I've shown to you. Okay? Because these are server internals. Then you say to yourself, okay, you know what? Is it to do with resources on my server? For WordPress, use this wp-config.php in the root folder of your server. You can add this to that file and then update. Then make sure that you're using disable directory browsing. Do this because that's going to avoid plenty issues, especially for WordPress. In fact, this is smart to use anyway. Then if you're using WordPress, put this in functions.php file located in your theme folder. Then you say to yourself, okay, you know what? I keep getting server errors in Search Console. Then log into your web host. In this example, I can only show you WordPress, but WP includes folder is the internals of WordPress. Right? Then within here you can, I'll actually upload that file so that you see. Let's look at desktop, HDXS. Let me upload this. Now I uploaded within WP-includes folder. I recently had a valued client who was experiencing issues in REST API folder, and we use this method to upload .hdxs file within that folder, telling Google, you know what, Google, when you request that folder, we want you to see .hdxs directives. And in our example, that is this. When the files match these, we want you to see xrobots tag. I'll actually request a URL from WordPress to show you what that .hdxs file has done. Let's go into endpoints and upload that within here, this folder. Okay, let me request that URL using F12 on my keyboard, bring out Web Developer Toolbar, press on the Network tab and further analyze what was the response code to see, did we send xrobots tag no index, and that's exactly what Google will see as well when it requests this PHP file, which is an internal WordPress file. Furthermore, as I've said at the beginning, you only want to triple check the web pages or product pages that you want to rank in Google. They become priority, so to speak. And then triple check your sitemaps, and then follow these 2-3 different options I've shown to you. And then this most definitely will fix server errors, server error 5xx. Now, what if you follow these techniques and it didn't fix? Then it's to do with the theme that you're using. That could be the case. Or it's to do with the plugins that you're using. They may not be compatible. Now, I'm going to show you another troubleshooting technique that is perhaps part of WordPress only. But you know what? All web servers give you error logs. So then you can further analyze your server error logs to see what causes problems. Because that area may give you insights as to what the issue may be with server errors as well. Is it to do with a plugin? Is it to do with a function? Is it to do with a theme? Make sense? So if you're using WordPress, you can define WordPress debug true. So if I put this up, now my server, whether the dashboard, let me log in and refresh the page to see if I'm seeing any errors. So I've just enabled debugging if I'm using WordPress. But if you're not using WordPress, then your server logs, as in when you log in to your web server, there will be a file called error log. Analyze that. Because if you follow the techniques and it didn't fix, then it is more than likely that it's to do with your theme. It's more than likely it's to do with some plugin incompatibility that's creating server errors. And at that moment, when perhaps you can disable some plugins. Disable it, double check. Disable another plugin, double check. To narrow down server errors, okay? Now, the most important ones are the ones that you have submitted. If you end up having errors, in my example, I have tested them, and you know what? I can validate fix. Because right now, there is no server errors. I've triple checked everything. And what will happen is Google will recrawl those URLs and then fix it. If it doesn't fix it, then it's going to give us a message saying, you know what? Validation failed. So you need to take it a step higher now for troubleshooting, okay? So there is many different ways to troubleshoot index coverage server errors in Search Console. And I've just revealed to you many different ways, particularly using the .htaccess file method, because that's definitely gonna be useful, especially if you're using WordPress. Once again, you can use that technique. It doesn't matter what content management system that you're using. As you can see, Google just sent an email saying, you know what, we're validating your fix. Nonetheless, index coverage server errors are absolutely critical and they must be fixed according to the insights I've just shared with you. Now, when you follow all these techniques, and if you think, you know what, I'm still having problems, then comment for this video and let's see what we can do. But please rewatch this video and follow the techniques I've shown to you. Because if you haven't, and then trying to comment saying, you know what, I just can't fix it, then I'm hesitant to tell you that the comment reply may take a while, okay? So, I thank you very much for learning with Frankia, and I'll talk with you in the next video session.